see already from here, that whoever did that first A, you probably thought that was a pink colour, but to me it's like a light red. So it always looks deeper from a view, so resist going over it twice. And the second thing is, actually when you get used to brushes, it's just as easy to use a thick side as a thin side, and it saves you a lot of time. Okay? But that's just to give you a little flavour. It's like anything. The more you practice, the more you'll become. Okay. Now, what we're going to do now, very quickly, is to go into what we're about today in a little bit more detail now. Choosing a site, open air sites. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but we want to go to where people are. We don't want to go to areas where there's too much space. It's not very clever to go in the middle of a great big arena, because people will stand as far away as possible. But it's not very good either to put it up in a car park, because you're likely to be run over. You want to say, where do I go so people are there? I'm not causing an obstruction, but they're free to come and go. That's very important. Otherwise shopkeepers will not be your friends, and nor the council. They're free to come and go, but there must be enough through flow of people so that those can want to stop will stop, okay? So again, you'll have to just work that out yourself. Wherever you live is not where I live, and your site will be different to my site. We do one in top of the precinct, and we do one down by the harbour site. You may have other sites that work, but think, where are people at? You've got to go where people are. We don't want to obstruct, so you don't obstruct traders, you don't obstruct cars, but there's a free flow of people to come and go. Okay, now, two ways of doing open airs. Okay? Massive amplification, blasting out. There's all the Christians standing, looking smiling or perhaps not smiling, and we want to make sure people hear the gospel because it's very important, so it blasts out. And I'd be very surprised actually if the non-Christians, who are the ones that look like fried eggs, I'd be very surprised if they even stand that near. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Now God can use that, but I would question whether it's very easy to facilitate one-to-one work doing it that way. Another way, the way we tend to use it, is with a visual aid. And you, again, Sketchboard is but one visual aid. Robbie or I, or be this person here, we use the Sketchboard, which is not a gimmick but a visual aid, because we're not seeking to draw attention to ourselves but the message that people are going to hear. And what happens is, to start with, people, right, these people here will be you, okay? Or if you like, rent a crowd. And just imagine that you're looking at a bargain in a window. So just imagine that board is the window. Sale, half price, Monday only, must finish. So you're not all going to crowd around the same way. I would stand here, because if you're a 6-footer, you might stand here and look at it. If you're very small and with poor sight, you may stand up quite close and watch it. So you're all looking at the same visual aid, but you're looking at it from different angles and different distances, okay? That's the way I would like you to be pleased this afternoon with a visual aid. Regard it as a shop window, stand around naturally, don't all huddle together, but just stand, but you're all focusing in on one thing. And hopefully what should happen during it is that non-Christians, and the ones that look like fried eggs, will stand in between. This is an ideal situation, but even if one or two do that, then what you've done is this, two things. You've related a focus on one thing, that's the board and the preacher, and also you've facilitated who the preacher is speaking to. He's not speaking to people out here or there. The preacher is going to be concerned with the people that are in this little perimeter here, okay? That's his congregation, if you like. But if it's done well and with 4 or 5 people, there should be a mix of Christians and non-Christians. So, you understand what I'm saying? These things don't work out ideally, but they do work out a lot better than this method, where people wonder why they couldn't get involved in conversation. So it facilitates who the person's speaking to and a mixture of people. And you stay there all the way through, by the way. You just look interested. And the fried eggs, the non-Christians, they'll come and go. But Robbie and I found sometimes that someone comes along just at the very end, don't they? And all the people, the initial audience, have disappeared for various reasons. Maybe it's just maybe a spiritual truth. But sometimes, quite often, we find in Brid that a non-Christian comes along at the very end. They haven't heard anything but the last bit. And the last bit of the message is the gospel, which I'm going to share. And then you can just say, oh, excuse me, I know you may just come along, but do you know what my friend's saying? And they'll of course say no, and you can then ease in. So, that's it. And there we are. Again, that's an ideal situation, but even if one conversation takes place, like that one, it's going to make it worthwhile, isn't it? I've hardly ever done an open air where there hasn't been one person listening partway through, or a conversation, however brief. You know, you can only converse with people as long as they're willing to listen. But I think one makes it all worthwhile. Because would you guarantee me one non-Christian in your congregation tomorrow? Perhaps not. So, you know, you've got to look at it in this, you've got to look at this work in the long term. You know, we're not here as a gimmick going out and doing things and saying, well, thank goodness we've done our spiritual work. Right, that's the normal work of sitting in churches once or twice every Sunday. If you're serious about this, I believe God will give you a burden to continue it. Will does it with a bookstall, and Lawrence here does it with a bookstall, linked in with Sketchboard. I do it mostly with board. The visual aid is one thing, but the desire to get out there with a method that works for you, that's another, okay? That's what I really want to implant in you today. Okay. We've looked at that. Okay, now I'm going to do a demo message, but try and remember, again, I'll just keep this up for you, sorry. Okay, how are we doing for time? Not too bad. Very, very quickly, Robbie and I are going to be doing 2 messages this afternoon. You can relax, we won't ask you to paint up anything. But basically, it's a 10-minute paint up, a 5-minute paint up roughly, and a 10-minute talk, and then we're seeking for you folks to either give out literature or seek to engage people in conversation. Okay? So here we go. 5 minutes paint up. I'll do this one this afternoon because it will always come out different in the street than it would in the lecture hall. Now, as I'm painting it up, hopefully a few non-Christians, you'll be stood roughly in one of those positions, and hopefully a few non-Christians will fill up the gaps. Can you see why it's important not to all stand together? Hope so. Well, good afternoon, folks. It's nice to see you. I wonder if I could ask you just to move in a wee little bit so I don't have to shout too much. That's great. Okay, so that means that you move in, then any non-Christians moving with you. I want to ask a question that I suppose is more asked than anywhere else in Britain. And people meet you, people ring you up on the phone, people meet you over the garden fence and they say, hello. How are you? Perhaps you say, I'm fine, particularly if you don't want to get to know you too well. But I want to ask something a bit more personal this afternoon, not how are you, but how fit are you? Because we live very much in a health age, don't we? The government are trying to educate even primary children to eat healthy food, to keep fit that way, and that's fine. That's one of the good things the government does do. And people are into different forms of exercise. And my wife and I enjoy walking. Some people enjoy swimming. I say some people are very much into healthy eating. And there's some people that you'll see around the streets, not always with a happy face, but they are really into fitness because they're into jogging. That's serious fitness, isn't it? And a few names come to mind. Remember the Olympics last year, Usain Bolt, Mo Farah, and my tennis heroes, Tim Henman and others. And a lot of people are into fitness today, aren't they? But when we're thinking about these people in sport, or people who keep fit or healthy, we're thinking about fitness actually all on the outside. You may say, well, isn't that what you're talking about? Well, it is, but it's only half the answer. What a lot of people don't realise is that it's actually, although this is important, it certainly is, but we don't want to just be fit on the outside, but it's more important to be fit on the inside. As the good book says, man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. In other words, what you and I are really like. We say he's a hard-hearted person or she's a kind-hearted person. We don't mean the organ that pumps blood around, we mean what you and I are really like. So how healthy is your heart? What are you really like as a person? What am I really like as a person? You may say, well, I'm quite a good person, you know, I don't break the law, never do anything with a bad turn if I can do a good one. But when God, who's perfect, looks at our hearts, he actually sees an awful lot of this. I-centeredness. I want more money. I want people to notice me. I want a decent pension when I retire. I want this. I want that. I want the next thing. The Bible actually says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So we can deceive ourselves into thinking we're quite good people when a perfect God looks into our heart and he sees something very different. And that's what the Bible calls sin, and it separates us